Zippity doo. You're live, Mark. What's up?
All right.
It's time.
Welcome everybody. This is our this is going to watch a bunch of old guys try to learn Daggerheart. So this you haven't tuned in the wrong channel. This is Wally DM's channel. But I guess I'm the guy. I'm the game master for this.
You
But
are.
so we're going to do kind of a combination thing tonight. First, before we're going to learn about the character creation kind of part of what the characters look like and talk about some of the game mechanics. And then when you tune in next time, we'll actually jump right in and kill each other. I mean, try to get through an adventure together. So I'm going to go around the table here and let's start with Fred. Fred, go, if you can introduce yourself and then toss it to the next person and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
All right, sure. So my name is Fred. I run the How to RPG channel, and I'll be playing Garrick Reed. Is that all you really wanted from us? Because
yes, that's perfect. And
cool.
we're gonna go through the character sheet, so you'll learn more about Garrick going down the road here. All right, so next up, Molly.
Me. Oh, man, I'm so nervous to be here. Thanks for having me on, Mark. I appreciate you running Daggerheart for me. Hi, everybody. My name is Wally. I am a YouTuber. I have a small channel that talks about puzzles and traps. I'm super excited to learn about Daggerheart. And the character that I'm going to be playing is going to be Marlowe Fairwind, a loreborn elf sorcerer. I'm super excited. Ketup.
Very cool.
And I am Ket Hup. I have an RPG channel, also called Ket Hup, because I'm good like that, where I do various RPG stuff, a lot of Cypher stuff, but various things, as well as live streams of development of my own thing, Void Home. And I will be playing Kari Nix, the looks of it.
That's Stevie's sibling, right? Stevie Nicks.
Ah, very good, very good.
It is
yeah.
now.
It is not.
Yeah,
No,
that's canon now. Yeah, he's the
Yeah.
If she's the white witch, that would make him the black sheep of the family. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, and I know AJ will hopefully be joining us shortly, later sometime, and he's playing Barnacle, a underborn ribbit, Nightwalker. So we'll get into that a little later.
Is Ribbit I'm going to take a stab in the dark on this one. Is that a frog person?
It is a frog person,
Oh
yeah, and he was pretty.
I'm-
pretty quickly grabbed that, yeah.
I'm
good
getting
job,
this
good
game. This Daggerheart's a piece of cake, man.
job. No, it's easy. It's easy. Yeah. It's easy until it isn't. So all right. So
Sorry.
with that, very good. Thank you very much for joining. I'm Mark from Dungeon Class, and you might have been hearing stuff about this. Critical Role's new venture with this. This is Critical Role and Darrington Press, which it's mostly Critical Role pushing it. But Darrington Press put this together. This game called Daggerheart, which it is the hot thing people are kind of talking about at the moment. Not really sure if it's going to take off and all that stuff. There's other competitors out there in the market, which we're not really going to talk about at the moment. But so we're in an interesting spot. This is an open beta. So this is, they've elected to throw this out there, let everyone try it out. And as they said, try to break it, please. Try to break the game. And Fred takes that personally when it comes to try to break the game. But I thought I might ask Fred Fred was involved with the 5e playtesting. And I recall him saying that they used all of their input to put together 5th edition. No, not quite like that. All right, I'll let Fred tell it. All right, so Fred, what was that like a little bit? And how far out was that? I don't know if you can remember back that far. But was it 6 months, a year ahead of that, the playtesting? But what are your thoughts on that?
All right. Okay. So for those of you, I'm not suggesting in any way that the D&D Next, which is what became Dungeons and Dragons 5e playtest, is anything like what they're going to be doing with Daggerheart. Okay. So let's make that completely clear that it was a very different thing. So the beta test for D&D Next was 2 years, roughly 2 years. And it was public. It was conducted by anybody who wanted to be part of it. I did not want to be part of it. And I made it clear that I did not want to be a guinea pig. But I wound up being a guinea pig because the dungeon master was insistent that we do it. So fuck you, mate. I had to do it, didn't I? Because you were the dungeon master. So I did. And see that dollar sign, Wally? It's already gone to a yellow.
Beware
Okay,
dog.
just
There
like
goes.
that.
Yep.
and
Yellow.
there it went.
Yep. No.
So I was pissed. But we did it, and then we played it, and we realized, well, okay, it's better than 4E. It was
Yeah.
better than 4E, and it felt less cumbersome than 3.5 or version 3 and Pathfinder, which I'd played as well. So we were like, okay, fine, okay, we'll stick with this. And I wound up being a player and a dungeon master. And then they said, oh, the beta test is closed. It's now the alpha play test. And Jonathan, my DM at the time that I was playing in his game and also dungeon mastering in my own group, he said, oh, I'm part of the alpha play test. Would you like to be a part of that? And you kind of have to if you're in my group, because you need to sign a disclaimer thingy. So the next thing I find myself, I'm part of another guinea pig as an alpha playtest, doing the player stuff and the dungeon master stuff. And so, yeah, my name did wind up in the monster manual because I gave rather a lot of feedback. I didn't realize that it was going to happen, but it did. I should have guessed when somebody was saying, you need to send me some feedback about the game via email. I should have guessed that might be happening. But I can make it clear. Beta test was a long process. And I would imagine that Daggerheart's public beta test is going to be a long process. Alpha play tests are usually closed doors. You do not see anything going on. That's why you have to sign a piece of paper that says you won't say anything. And the good thing about those sorts of things is they really don't mean anything a few years later. It's been 10 years, so I couldn't care less. And I don't think
they're not going to come after you now.
Well, it wouldn't matter. What would be the point? It'd be there's no point. So here's the thing. It's usually a very short period of time. They usually require a lot of feedback from you, and you guys will never know what the hell that looks like because it will not be public. It'll all be closed doors and disclaimers signed and bits of paper and all that sort of stuff.
Interesting.
You'll find that the beta test I found had probably more effect than the closed door play testing. So you'll find that alpha play testing, which you don't see, usually your feedback, you just don't know if what you say is what everybody else is saying. So you don't know how much impact you're actually having on the game. But you'll notice significant things in a public beta test. That's enough. I'm done.
No, very good. No, I that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know what that looks like and maybe get an idea of the timeline. That might be surprising, but I guess would you say if they're going to do it right, they want to have a long beta test?
Yeah, I would say 2 years minimum is a smart way to go for a game. I would even say that the beta play test for D&D Next could have been a little bit longer, and the alpha play test behind closed doors, which was actually very short. I think it was somewhere between 3 and 6 months. Was way too short. We just didn't have time to get to everything, and you didn't know how many alpha play testers were actually operating either. So you didn't know. I used to get feedback and say, you need to test the monsters from A to D in the monster manual, and you have 2 weeks. And I'm like, what the hell?
Wow.
What do you think I can do? So
yeah.
So yeah,
That's
interesting. So I learned to run a lot of combat in D&D Next, which it amuses me how people go on about how long it takes to run combat in 5e. But anyway, that's it.
Yeah. Oh, so you're the reason you guys didn't fix that?
Oh, I gave my my feedback, dude. Okay. I gave my feedback.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Let's move on. Let's do Daggerheart stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So who wants to introduce their character first?
I'll go first.
Okay. All right, Wally. So if
that's just because I've got the PDF pulled up already, and mine.
I was just gonna say, yeah, if you've got that page number,
it'll make it easier. So I'm going to transition to. There we go. I am looking at the character, and so is everyone that is watching. We're taking a look at Marlowe Fairwind.
Okay.
Lordborn Elf Sorcerer.
Marlowe Fairwind. All right. So some of the things I kind of want to point out. So what's the class?
The class is a sorcerer. Yes. Sorcerer's one of my favorite classes to play. So of course that's why I chose her. I was just like, yeah, sorcerer. I gotta see what this is about.
Okay.
'Cause I'm,
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, all about sorcerers.
All right. So one of the things, it says Lordborn, and we're gonna get into some of that stuff a little bit later, possibly when we talk about loadout and all that stuff. But
Okay.
I really want to kind of highlight some of the stuff on the sheet, unless anyone wants to jump in. Quite up. You said you maybe looked this over the rules and kind of went through them, but you haven't played it, right? Is what I heard.
I haven't played it yet, but I did a couple of
Yeah.
streams with a few other people, like Taryn Pounds and a couple other like creators and stuff, just to pick apart. I think we had Chris in Treant Monk for a little bit.
Well, very good. Yeah. Oh, well, great. So you definitely chime in if you have anything that you're like, oh, that we need to talk about this, or what I like about this, any of that. Just this one, like a lot of our roundtables, we often just kind of go kind of loose. So don't feel like you have to raise your hand and jump. Yeah, you don't have to do that per se. But so what I thought we'd do with
Yeah.
Wally's paper, I'm not seeing it up on the stream yet, but anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta hit the transition button. Gosh, I'm such a
It's like,
such
I'm
a
like
such
they
a
might
rookie,
might be
man.
helpful for them to see it.
There we
It's
go.
Okay, it's
There
all
we go.
good. Yeah,
There we
yeah.
go. We're here.
All right.
We're here.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Things
So
are happening now.
That's very good. So just a few things in there. As it says, the ancestry, that's nothing super big. Loreborn, that's just kind of they have a couple little things with the background. Loreborn's being one of them. The class and subclass, it's a primal origin sorcerer. I'm gonna jump through that a little bit. You'll notice it has these questions. So one of the things that's kind of interesting about Daggerheart is even during the creation process, they ask a bunch of questions, and I like that where it kind of helps guide you in their character sheets. These are pre-gen, and so these are already created, but there were some guiding questions to get you thinking about the character, build a little background, write about it, and so it even has a spot, even with these pre-gens, that you can write some stuff about your background in there.
Okay.
One of the other things I like too is like they ask you, like they would say, like, Fred's character, say, Fred, how did your character meet the other characters or another character? And so they have these conversations during this like session 0 thing where you're already making connections prior to the game. And it really, and for me, I was, as I'm listening to, because I watched Critical Role do this, and Matt Mercer did one with Travis Willingham where they're creating one-on-one. But what was interesting is that you're kind of helping the DM or the GM to try to get some connection, some hooks as you're going through this session 0. So it was kind of a nifty little thing. So, okay, these guys know each other from a past experience. In there is like, what are they looking for? So you're discussing more of the backstory, but you're also helping put together as a team together. And so I have some mixed feelings about that. And while I'm talking about that, they also, as far as the map that they play in, they kind of pass it around and say, all right, name this what's the name of this continent? Give me some history. What do you guys think of that idea of the players helping create the world that you run in, as well as putting out there a whole bunch of hooks prior to that? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I personally kind of already do that, but I've played I like a lot of narrative games. So like Fate,
Right.
Cypher, powered by the apocalypse to a degree, stuff like that. None of them are perfect, but they all have bits and bobs that I like. And a lot of them have something as far as bringing players in to have a lot more input and a lot more almost like a GM style oomph versus something like D&D or Pathfinder where there was very much a divide.
Right.
I kind of like that myself. I can see the DNA that they brought over from those types of games.
Yeah, I thought it was different and neat. I thought it takes a little bit of a load off of the GM for sure. And so I was like, well, that is kind of a nifty idea, and have them kind of work at it. And also I was thinking in terms of you teaching other GMs, other players to kind of be a GM. Like we're all going to help you to an extent versus you have to come up with everything off the top of your head. And some GMs not so excited or good at or want to do world building as much as the storytelling element. So that might take some load off them of helping them build their world, and then giving them some hooks to jump on. So I thought that was it's interesting. There's a lot of this that I was saying earlier before we went on. It's like they're interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
They're well thought out. Like there's been a lot of thought into this game for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how I feel exactly, and I'm kind of wait and see how that goes in game. But anyway, so that was yes, Wally.
Yes.
Yes.
So I have a question, and then I want to follow it up with how I feel about it. So I guess the question first is, do you have to do that? Or is there hints at Daggerheart maybe having something that's already generated for you to run your games in? Or it does, okay, we're going to start a Daggerheart campaign, and that's something that you do?
So I think it's going to be both. I think what I've seen is they've given you, like in the packet of stuff, the playtest materials, they give you basically blank continents. And here's the world you play in. So they're encouraging to try that. Everybody names a piece of it kind of thing.
I get that.
But then later, they give you the scenarios that are already prepared, at least in the playtest stuff. So I feel like it's probably going to go either way. So I think you'll have some flexibility in that. I don't know if I think they're going to have some, well, I almost guarantee you there's going to be some at least third generation stuff put together for people to use. So you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Yes,
from
but
everything that I've come through in the book, none of that is mechanically necessary. Like it's a step you could skip.
Okay. Yeah, because that's my question. Because just knowing the groups that I play with, there's a group or two that would be ecstatic about it, and there's a group that I play with that would be like, "What are we doing? I don't want to do this. Is there a bugbear there? Can we just fight the bugbear?" You know. So.
Yeah. I think it's very much flexible, and you can take pieces out, and you can do as much of that as you want, or you can take it out, and it spills over into the storytelling too, which we'll touch on when we do our when we actually play. There's some elements where you get to, and it's always been a collaborative storytelling for sure, but it's even more collaborative. Some of the ideas that they propose anyway that you could do in the game, so it's kind of interesting. All right, so the connection we talked about.
Question, or are we moving on?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was Wally's question?
So I've also played Fate Bulldogs and some narrative games, and also I would like to point out that a lot of what they're trying to do, which I do in my games anyway, you have to do in Dungeons and Dragons at higher levels. Like it's a totally different game. So if you think you can play the game in D&D the same way all the way through, you're wasting your time. It's why most people finish at level 10 and they're done, because beyond there, it's a totally different kettle of fish. You have to have interplay by the players. Otherwise, you're playing with yourself, which you should really only do in your own private room. Rather than,
oh, man. Okay.
Yeah,
he went there. I thought he was going to go there. I thought he was going to go there.
I think it's smart, and it's where all games are going eventually. Whether the crunchy games or not, they're all going to wind up going this way because that is what people want, and it's just a lot harder to do. Well, let's get real. This is experienced game master stuff. If the designers can do it in such a way that it takes some of the load off a game master or dungeon master, then that's a good thing, because it is not easy to do. Anyway.
Well, I was also thinking if you do take some of that load off, then you actually get people that may want to be a game master. Sometimes the players look at it and go, "Oh no, that the dungeon master has to do so much, or the game master has to do, I don't want to do that. I don't want to ever do that, But if you can show them that there's a little give and take, and that we're gonna work on some of this together, that would be a better sell, I think. All right, so. Scrolling up a little bit on that paper that disappeared on the stream, it looks like.
Oh, it's back. It's back.
All right.
I got you.
There's a couple things. So if you scroll up, I just want to get into the actual sheet more than anything at this point. I don't want to bore everyone with all the little tiny details. We could go on for 3 hours breaking all these down. But it's a lot of this stuff that's here, as a lot of it is very much the same as a lot of games, except I'm not going to talk yet about duality dice and action rolls and hope and fear and attack rolls and all that stuff as yet. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But those are the things that really set this game apart as far as the gameplay mechanics are. But there's some mechanics that are on the sheets, the character sheets. I want to get kind of out of the way a little bit, and then we talk about some of these mechanics as we go through. So first of all, right there, you'll see right away there's evasion and there's armor class. And evasion, it's kind of like, kind of reminds me of rogues or something, having that dexterity where they can evade something.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a mechanic that all the characters have this evasion. And then the armor class is something that it can degrade over time. So this armor, and I kind of like that idea. So what happens in combat is when you're trying to mitigate someone attacking you, one is you have your evasion score. That's the number that's gonna help you not take the damage. So a person, let's say they roll over a 9,
Mm-hmm.
they would hit, except you have your armor of 2. So that's a modifier that you would add to that. You would say, well, with my armor, that's another 2, so that's 11. Now you'll see these boxes next to the armor. After you've used this armor a few times, that armor drops off. So
Oh, snap.
reminds me of video games where your armor starts to break down and you have to go get it repaired. So there is that element in this game. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. That sounds video gamey, but there's definitely video game elements in this that you can see, which that made me a little nervous. I had flashbacks of fourth edition, but I think that it's an interesting idea. So it wears off, and then during your downtime, you can take time to actually repair your armor. So there's that evasion and the armor too. So that's what you see. That's why and those boxes, once you use them up, your armor breaks, and you only now it's only your evasion. And so I guess you could think of the evasion kind of being like, what is it in D&D? Like if you have no armor, it's like a base of 10.
Oh, like
In this one,
flat-footed
as
or
it says,
something? Like in
yeah,
Pathfinder?
yeah, it's like you have no.
a-
If you had no armor whatsoever, you would have you would 9, and that's
Mm.
just a normal person. But you've
Oh.
got this armor on, but the armor protects you for a while, and so it's like an unarmored evasion. It's like an unarmored. They did some things with the names that I think they need to fix a little bit, which we'll talk about here and there. But
Yeah.
so you have next to that, you've got your ability scores, and there's one thing that I don't know that it was necessary. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but you've got ability, strength, finesse, instinct, presence, and knowledge.
Okay.
So they changed the names of some of the ability scores, but then when you read them, you're like, that sounds like, like
Like so one
wisdom.
happens to the other.
Yeah, yeah. So what are your thoughts? Like, do you think are they different enough, or is that? I almost feel like I don't know. I have my thoughts. What do you think?
I think they just wanted to retain some level of familiarity. Like they know who their fan base is.
Sure,
They
yeah.
know where their players are coming from. And obviously a lot of this has differentiated itself quite a bit from 5e, but I think they wanted to keep some of the core stuff there so that people are coming in and going like, I don't know.
That sounds like me. Yeah.
I think they wanted to keep the basics for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I was just when I saw it, I was like, why? I mean, they've changed some other things. You have other mechanic, but I mean, it may be just just my personal preference. But what do you guys thought? What do you think, Red Wally? Doesn't matter to you, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you know, whether they thought there were better names or whether they started developing it when the OGL stuff was going on and before everything got dumped into the SRD. That's my thoughts is either staying away from copying something else or making your stuff where it can't be copied kind of a thing. Because now if I go and I create a game system that has agility, strength, finesse, instinct, presence, they might be like, hey, by the way,
Right.
and I call it like a sword heart or something like that. They might not care for it, but I mean, who's to know? I mean, yeah.
No, that's good. No,
Doesn't
that
bother
is a
me. Yeah.
no, yeah. It was just interesting, and then underneath you've got all your skills. Yeah.
There is one thing that
Fred?
does bother me, and that's the pluses and the minus. Where's my ability scores at? Where's my 16s and 17s?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's I don't know what that's about. Like math's hard. We don't want to do that. We're going to do it for you.
It's the way that a lot of stuff's going. A lot of people 5e. I think even D&D Beyond they put your bonus and pluses or bonuses and penalties at the top now. I've just been old school for so long. I like the ability scores. Sorry, go
I've
ahead.
been
Fred.
willing to get rid of ability scores for
See?
decades. I'm happy to see them go.
I
They aren't needed.
Yeah,
Haven't been needed since like second edition.
yeah,
No.
true. I know they mean nothing until once you've got your modifiers.
They mean
Yes,
something to
Fred.
me.
I mean, Fred's been
So,
Fred,
so
Fred
I
really
do have
wants to
something.
say something. All
I
right, go
do
ahead.
have something to say about this.
Oh,
So first of all, it is very much just ripping off D&D, but then everything does, and I think one of the reasons why they've done it this way is the really people shouldn't be concerned about worrying about using the 6 ability scores, you know, or abilities in their game because they're not really something you can win in a court. But it does save you the hassle of Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro deciding to take you to court, having to pay for $30,000 minimum to fight it in a court to make sure that you can do it for the sake of some company who knows fully well that they're going to lose the court case,
Oh,
just
good point.
screwing you over and dropping your revenue by 30 grand, which is something that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, if people were unaware, are prone to doing quite often, actually, because I've come across a few companies who have done it. Had to deal with it. It's not nice. It's very unpleasant. And of course, because it's American, you can only fight that in New York, in America. So if you're from a different country, like you're screwed. So one of the things I thought was entertaining is they've changed the names. They're essentially exactly the same sort of thing. Getting rid of the scores is because obviously nobody uses the scores apart from me. I use ability scores in D&D.
Oh,
They've
you're the one guy.
well, yes, I do. I use the scores. And this goes way back to older versions of D&D. But they've decided that obviously the scores aren't something we want to incorporate into a game. There's no point having them. Let's just assign pluses and minuses and some zeros to the various stats or attributes that we have. And you essentially just pick a +2, +1, or 2 +1s, and a -1, and the others are 0. And that's it. And you just put them where you need them to be. And that's how you start your character creation. I know this because I've just done it on Nexus. For those of you who don't know about Nexus, you can build a character using Nexus.
Yeah, and we probably should mention that that is a great tool if you're trying to learn this game. Even just to look at it and see. Maybe you have no intention of playing this game ever, but I don't know about you, but I like to kind of know what's out there, and I read through books all the time, and I may not play that game, but I like to see what they're doing out there, and so it's free. You can download as part of the beta test stuff, so anybody can download it and look through, and it's really great about you can just click through all the different rules and stuff really easily. So that we were talking about before, we felt like that's a smart move on their part because of D&D Beyond. You better come out of the gate running to be sure that you're gonna be able to compete against something like D&D, and D&D Beyond is like so far ahead of the game right now.
Yeah.
So that's good. No, good.
I'm seeing a lot of online games. Like you almost need to compete by having digital tools now.
Yeah.
Like I'm seeing a lot of companies, like obviously Pathfinder's done it for a while. Monica Games just released their own character builder. You've got this for this game. Like if you don't have digital tools now, it feels almost like you're kind of lagging behind the curve a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know Pirate Borg even had one. Shadow Dark, I think's got one. They've all had these out there out of the gate, which I think is yeah, you're right, absolutely. It would be behind the curve. All right, so let's look at hit points and stress. So that's a little different right there. So stress, what the heck's that? We'll get into that in a sec. And also the way the hit points are on there, it kind of reminds me of a heads-up display. You've got the little dots, and you have color them in. So I have some mixed feelings about that one. But you'll notice right away there's numbers there. Wally's character has a 1, 6, and 12, and that refers to when someone attacks, whatever they roll. If it rolls anywhere between 1 and a 5, that would be minor damage. If the attack damage someone's attack damage against his character, if they hit with he hits you for 5 points of damage, that would be considered minor damage. Or if we said, oh, it did like 9 points of damage, then that's major damage, and then anything over 12 is severe. Now, depending on the severity of the damage, that's how many of the hit points you take away, you color in. You're losing your health, basically. That's what the little colored dot things in. So it does remind me of video game, your health bar, basically, which is, to me, I saw that and I'm like, yeah, that's video game. That's definitely influenced by video games. And so I kind of sort of like the 1 6 12 thing, and what that happens as your levels go up, those numbers start to get bigger, so it's harder and harder to hit you and things like that. So those are and you've got some of your things in your loadout can mitigate some of that and all. So but that's how damage is done. That's how hit points are done.
Okay. So,
Stress.
but
Go ahead.
before you move on, just so that I understand, this is a D12 based system then, correct?
Correct. Thank
Okay.
you. Yes,
Yeah.
D12 section we're going to talk a little more about when we get to Hope, but yes, you're going to
Okay.
use D12s, which I was my first thought was like, okay, these are guys that have played maybe a lot of fifth
Mhm.
edition or whatever. I'm like, man, we never use the D12 like ever. So
Mhm.
the D12 is just kind of in your bag for, it's like percentile. You don't do that very often.
Mhm.
So D12s don't get a lot of love. So I think it kind of made me chuckle. It's like, oh, we'll make that the basis of our game for the most. D12s
I
get a
love it.
lot of use in
Yeah.
this game. So yeah, it's a D12 system. And yeah, so
And
there's that has to do with the hope and the fear dice, which we're going to talk about as well.
the second thing question I
Interesting
have is I
mechanic.
see dotted lines. So we've got, it looks like this character has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yep,
6 filled, and then there's dotted ones after that. So I'm guessing that's when you level up, you would like
yep,
trace those. Okay.
correct. And Ketup, I don't remember if I remember correct, this only goes to level 10 currently, isn't that the max?
I
I think
believe
they said.
so. I don't know if they have, if this is going to be expanded or they're going to have like epic levels or how this is going to work.
Right.
Like,
Hmm.
I think it's right now. It's
So
just
yeah, I had a thought about and we'll talk more about the loadout thing, but you know, first of all, the magic number 10. I think that definitely coincides with the data that shows that I think it's the fifth edition.
Somebody
The
mentioned that.
statistics show no one paid past level 10, right?
Mhm.
And so they just, well, let's make the game go to 10. But I think with this loadout system, they may be onto something that might help solve the problems of after 10. Like, all the problems that happen in higher levels. I think this loadout thing might be part of the secret sauce to maybe fixing that down the road, but that's not been discussed or anything. But we'll talk more about that when we get to loadouts. But I think it's interesting that they're coming out of the gate saying, yeah, this game only goes to level 10. Um, or it might be one of those cases too where some video games and games are not about leveling, because people are like, oh, we got to level up, we got to level up, we got to level up. And more along the lines of you can change out your loadout and stuff and things like that and still make it different enough where you don't necessarily have to go up levels. So I'm not sure if that's where they want to go with that or not, but I haven't got that sense nailed down where they're going to go. But so level 10, and you're right, you fill those in, and you'll notice stress. So stress is interesting. It's kind of I think of it like an insanity thing from the insanity it's a mechanic I know in the game, but like in Cthulhu and things where you have insanity points, but also it's wear and tear on your body as well. So it kind of is a mixture of the both. So, and it can be used like, you got damaged and it was pretty bad, and it looked pretty rough. Your guts were hanging out or something. You're like, go ahead and mark a stress on that thing because that was pretty rough, or you saw some really bad things.
Hmm.
So it's maybe mental, but also physical toll that it takes on you, and those start to fill up. You fill those in, and that's a bad thing to have a lot of those. When you max those out, there are consequences to that. In fact, the consequences are once you max it out, everything you do is a disadvantage while those are filled up. So you want to get rid of that stress. You got to de-stress. So,
Now, do
so it's an
those
interesting.
do those reset? Do they have like a long rest mechanic, or when do those?
Yes,
How does
they have a
your
long rest mechanic. Yeah,
okay?
they do. And what's cool about that, short rest and long rest, what I like about it is it's not like, okay, you guys take a long rest and you get all your spells back and all your hit points and all that. You have to describe, they suggest anyway. I guess that's part of the mechanic. You would say, well, what are you doing to get back those hit points? What are you doing to reduce those stress? Tell the DM or GM, well, what is that you're doing to do, which I like that aspect where it really has more meaning to what you're doing in short rest and what you're doing in long rest, those things that are out of combat things. Repairing your armor is a short, I think short, but also long, is more long rest kind of activity that you're, all right, so put the leather straps back on your armor and fix that thing so you have your armor back. So yeah, that's all part of that, which I really, really like that idea, fleshing out what it means to have a short rest or a long rest. So good stuff. All right. The meat and potatoes of this game, the hope and fear. So you roll 2 different color D12s, and this is this duality dice, they call it. So anytime there's an action, so like if you say, I want to investigate the area, or I don't know if investigate's even the word, whatever use they word for investigation. Navigate, sense, I guess. I don't want whatever it is, the GM would decide, all right, yeah, I want to sense around and see if I can find anything. Then you say, okay, roll your D12s, and you have any modifiers and things that, oh no, not on this one, but you roll your duality and you see there you have 2 different color D12s. If you can picture, say, a red one and a blue one. And maybe we'll make red fear and we'll make blue hope. So you roll these D12s and then you tell the GM the number. All right, I rolled these 12s, 2 D12s, and I got a 18. But whatever the higher one is, you say it's either with hope or it was with fear. Or if they're the same number, that's a critical success. So there's three possibilities. Critical success, and those are not just the max, 2d12s. It's anytime you roll 2 numbers of the same, that's a critical success. So I have some mixed feelings about that one too, that there's a lot of opportunities to have critical success. There is this is the number, but where you say, I rolled a 17 with fear, or I rolled a 17 with hope, whichever those higher numbers are. So what does that hope and fear mean? And the short version is that basically hope is good for you as a player. Fear is good for the DM or the GM. So hope means you get to mark that little hope box there, and it says you start, I think it says that you normally gonna have 2 of those filled in. They're kind of like inspiration points, really. So you kind of collect these in there and you have these hopes. So these are good to have, and you want to have these hope points. It's good for the player. The GM likes to have fear points, because those fear points are the things that they can pull from and use. So you for the hope, you can use hope to re-roll something, pretty much all the ways you can use inspiration. The GM can say, I'm going to spend a fear point, and my villain or the monster is going to take another attack or something. So there's lots of little things that they can do with that fear die. So you don't really want the GM to get so many fear points, but it's going to happen. But you desire to have hope points. So that's what I like about that, is the fear points kind of balances the GM versus the player thing a little bit, because the GM, they can't just say, that limits kind of what they can do. They have to have these fears to be able to do stuff like an extra attack, or the guy's going to move over and try to there's different things. So it kind of dictates that a little bit for them. And I kind of like that balance of power is kind of mitigated a little bit. So I don't know. What do you think, Ketup? Is that?
So with me, I got a little bit of input here. Anyone that's seen my channel knows, like, Cypher's probably my big system. I'm pretty close to Monte Cook games and stuff. And I also like other things like Fate. And they did credit the fact that they kind of got some of these mechanics a little bit from the complications from Fate, and more specifically the intrusions from Cypher. I feel like they missed part of the intent of those in the way they work, and how it was the GM could use it, or the players in some cases, as a narrative balancing tool. So you never had issues with, like, an encounter was going too easy or too hard, because you have a mechanic to balance that out. In this case, they're close, and I like it, and I kind of like the way they were aiming for it. But the fact that it's reliant on generating the fear through the dice rolls and stuff, and I forget who has said it. I think it was D&D Shorts. Sometimes there are certain situations in this game where the rules make you not want to do something. You don't want
Oh.
to act. You don't want to roll because you could be giving the GM stuff. So sometimes
Oh, wow.
tactically,
Yeah.
the best thing to do is to say, I do nothing.
Oh,
And
that's great.
There's some balance issues I think they need to work on.
That's what you want in a game. Yeah, I choose to do nothing. Yeah. If yeah. Well, as a teacher, it reminds me of the way the SAT used to be, the original SAT. For years, teachers always told you that if you just guess, if you're not sure, just go ahead and guess. But the SAT would penalize you, like if you, and like this is probably a United States thing, if you answered it correctly, that's good. If you answered it wrong, you lose points. Like, it's not even like you actually would subtract points from your number. I'm like, that's the most heinous kind of test ever. Thankfully, they've changed that. But it used to be that I was like, so you're penalized. There would be times you'd be better off like, I'm not putting anything down because I don't want to take away from my score. I only want to jump in there and answer that if I think it's going to help my score. So, yeah, that's a terrible
That's exactly what like, not to jump ahead too much or anything, but he mentioned like there's other parts of the system that do this too. Like if you take an action, then the GM gets an action to spend. But
Yes.
if you didn't have a way to interact, like he showed a fighter that couldn't hit the ghost they were fighting, so his only action that was tactically sound was to do nothing.
Yes, yes.
I have another question, and since you've brought this up, that other systems have something similar, does it? I mean, maybe it's just the way that I interpreted it, hearing it for the first time. But does it kind of generate like a player versus GM mentality? Because you said that it's by you give the GM fate points, and they're like, oh cool, you failed, so now I get to do this, as the GM.
Yeah.
Whereas opposed to like a legendary action of a monster and like 5e, it's just like this is something the monster would do. But
Right.
by giving them fate points, that sounds like this is something the GM would do. And I don't know if I misinterpreted that wrong, or if that's
This is why I like the way Cypher does it, because in Cypher, the GM would like to say, I want to do an intrusion.
Mm-hmm.
You can gain experience by letting me do this, or you could spend a resource and shut me down. The player actually gets the choice to be like, nah, GM, I'm succeeding today. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's probably a better move because you're absolutely right, Wally. It kind of is. My first thought is it's trying to limit the power that the GM has, but you're right. At the same time, it does make that us against them. It does foster
Fred.
that, I think. Yes, Fred. Uh-oh, Fred's got something wise to say.
So I just like to point out to people that I have built a character while we've been talking. I've built a character using Nexus, and I keep dropping the link into the chat. But back to the game sort of rewards people for doing nothing. One of the things I would like to sort of use as an analog to this is the 4E skill challenge. Where in the 4E skill challenge, often the best thing to do was to choose to do nothing, unless you had written into your mechanics, and this is probably what Daggerheart needs to do, is if you choose to not participate, you fail. And that's what I would often do with the skill challenge in terms of people who would like, oh no, my numbers will not be good enough. I cannot afford to roll a dice because then there's a failure. So I will not take part. And I was like, okay. So the easiest way to deal with that, and I think that's probably what they need to do with, is to say, well, if you choose to not participate, then you fail. That people only win. Winners participate. Losers don't. I mean,
Wow.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, really, that's it. So
and why would you? Yeah, so you have a game that people don't want to participate. That is a really that definitely, we'll write that down as a problem of the game for sure. Yeah,
but still, the fact that there are circumstances like that means there's a hole that, as Fred was saying, needs to be plugged.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, I think that's part of that. That's good. No, those are excellent points. Well, while you brought up the action tracker thing, I want you to, because we have the well, let's talk about that because it doesn't really have anything on here that's going to talk about. All right, so basically, the action tracker is so when you enter combat, they don't do oh gosh, the word went out of my mind. You don't roll for initiative. You don't roll for initiative. That's not how this works. So basically, yeah. Oh, Fred likes this. Fred.
Let's get real.
So
Look, it's a dinosaur. It's a dinosaur. It's not even a good dinosaur. It's a dinosaur that should have been shot and burned alive till there's nothing left. Because all initiative is who's going to go first
yes.
and who's going to go last. That's all it is.
Well, and isn't there an inordinate amount of time spent rolling for initiative, putting the order down? So yeah, I was like, okay, no initiative. All right. So basically, it's like you say, I want my barbarian's going to come in swinging. All right. Well, the action tracker is basically just a piece of cardboard is what they have in the thing anyway, but it's got to be some visual thing that you lay down. You say, so I take an action, and you put that on the paper. Another person says, I'm going to jump in and do this. Well, the GM, his monsters can only pretty much do stuff if, as I understand it, Ketup, is if you pull the token off the mat and say, okay, I'm going to respond with my monster. So as you lay these tokens, because they talk about using tokens, so maybe let's say use pennies or something. As you lay them on there as actions, the GM can respond with the monsters and things. But some of the monsters have a thing where they can just attack right away, and it's written in their thing that they get first crack or whatever. Maybe you have something in your loadout that says that when you see somebody first, you get to attack. So there's some direction there, but it's kind of like the GM really can't do much until they do stuff, and then once those are taken out, everyone gets a turn. So I guess that's happening. It's just they're not all okay. Number one goes first, and number two goes next. So it's kind of it is taking turns. I'm just not sure the long-term effects of that. What do you think?
Fred? Oh no, go ahead, Fred. You first.
I'll go after you. I have quite a bit to say about this because
he's got it right.
So I'll wait.
It might be along the same lines because I also agree. The dinosaur that is initiative is one of those grandfathered holdovers, because the classic initiative was one of two things. It was either a static initiative, in which case after the first round, initiative doesn't matter anymore because you're going in the same turn. So like it's useless beginning, or it was round by round initiative, in which case it was not really fun and not really adding anything to the combat in any way.
No.
These days I'm much preferring simpler initiative, like groups. The NPCs go, the players go, or there's a couple of different like easier or more intuitive ones. This is interesting. I'm still not sure how. I'm still digesting this like points system. It's almost like an action point system.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. But I gotta say, at least they're moving away from, as Fred was saying, a dinosaur that I agree needs to be moved away from.
Yeah, so this speaks to me to this business of they really have put a lot of thought, and there's no question they put a lot of thought into this game. You know, what are some of the pain points that we saw in other games, and they seem to really be addressing it. The video game aspects to me kind of feels a little bit like the fourth edition. Let's try to get people from the video games into our game, and I'm not sure. I still have bad taste from fourth edition in my mouth, so I shouldn't hold that against them. Like I don't know that it doesn't, to me, I don't see anything in here that's, oh, that's ridiculous. It's not cumbersome. There's some weird things like they call evasion on the players, but they have a different name for it on the monsters, which I thought it's kind of weird. Why don't you make it the same word? So I think that might get ironed out down. There's little tweaks like that probably need to be fixed. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm not sure. I definitely, it's a breath of fresh air because it's something different than, but I don't know long term. I think you're going to get it in situations that now you're handcuffed as a GM, like, okay, my monsters like can't do anything because there's no tokens out there, so I can't really retaliate and do. So that part's kind of a little weird. So
Someone mentioned
I'm
the
not sure.
MCDM, and I was in a playtest with Treant Monk and a bunch of others for that one. And I gotta admit, like, I wasn't huge on that one either because it was very much a lot of, okay, GM got a turn. I guess I decided which one goes. Players get a turn. Did you want to go? Like, should I go? Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Should I go now? And it ended up like the system was fast, but that was, I think, the only slower part of combat. So
Okay.
still figuring that one out, I think.
Yeah, I'm interested in that MCDM. That's an interesting, yeah, I'm interested. I haven't got to look at that. So yeah, I'm interested to take a look at that. I figured it's going to have a lot of political machinations in it. If I know Matt Colville, heavy on the political machinations.
A zipper system. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll have to be a separate stream. I think it's time for Fred's rant.
Yeah, it's
yeah. Time for Fred's rant. Okay,
whoever's
go ahead,
doing
Fred.
timestamps in the future, Fred's rant number 2. Go ahead and timestamp that.
So also too, for those of you who are wondering what the mystery is about, what Matthew Colville is doing, Matthew Colville is just remaking Dungeons and Dragons 4E into the version that they would have been made if people hadn't shat all over them and said they don't like the idea of doing things a certain way. That's all Matthew's doing. He's just calling it something else. So no, initiative. So for those of you who are unaware, there's a lot of different ways you can run initiative, and static initiative is really good for a game master. As Arcus was pointing out, you can use static initiative, but then after that, it doesn't mean very much other than the first time you do it. And here's the other problem with static initiative. Players hate with a passion static initiative. I've always been very fond of in-person clockwise or anti-clockwise, and that is because of big game tables. There's nothing more tedious than having to deal with who on the table is now going. It's just easier to go clockwise than anti-clockwise. If you look at basic, basic had group initiative, and you just like one person out of the players rolls a 6-sided dice, and the game master rolls a 6-sided dice, and whoever gets the highest number gets to go first. And that's essentially, and that's nice and simple. What I do is I use group initiative in D&D, and I think what they've done here, and the reason I use group initiative is primarily most of the time you'll find at low level, when the game master goes and the players go, can vary a little bit. But after that, your monsters are usually going last. Okay, either because you are cursed as a game master and the 20-sided dice hates your guts, right? And all it wants to do is roll 1s and 2s. Or the fact that the players have just got such high modifiers for initiative that you can't really compete with them, or they've got something that they can sort of fiddle with. And the fact that they're, primarily there's more of them rolling dice than you. They're going to be more of them going first. So what I do is I bunch it. I still use initiative, but I don't move it and I don't redo it. And the only reason for doing it is speed. Because that's the thing. Yeah. Combat's fun when it's fast. Combat sucks when it's slow. And I can see people thinking that. And for a game master, it is one of the biggest hurdles. It takes up more space in your brain dealing with who's going first and doing what than anything else. That is the hardest thing. And one of the greatest things you can have as a game master is when you say, who's doing what? And somebody actually puts their hand up and says, I want to swing my sword. And if all you need to say is swing your sword, roll your dice. Next person. Yeah. Don't even wait for them to tell you what the numbers is. Who gives a toss? Nobody does. I think what they're trying to do by this point, but it's true. It's true. Nobody gives a toss other than the player who's rolling dice. Yeah. Nobody else really cares, really. And a game master certainly doesn't. It's just a whole lot of numbers they've got to add up. So it's great if you say to the players, here you go, it's your turn. Who's going to do what? The person who's already figured out exactly what they're going to do is going to play their action or their token first.
Yep.
which means those people who need a bit more time to think about what they're going to do because they're not sure, because they process a little bit slowly, or because they're just not too sure what everybody else is going to do and they're waiting to see what other people do first, and they're still trying to catch up. Or, oh, I was on my phone and I wasn't paying attention. I need to see what everybody else is doing so I can catch up because I have no idea what's going on right now. Apparently we're fighting something and I don't know what it is. Okay? So it naturally allows for that order to be developed by the players, and then you just cycle in your game master once they've got some tokens, which I think actually is smart. It means that Daggerheart should play fast.
Yeah.
The only thing is, and I think that's changed now, right? Because there were some different variations of how it would work. And there's if a player could play more than one token and do more than one thing before the game master finally gets to do something with their monster, and there's no more monsters left. I mean, that's really the biggest issue that I can see. But as soon as somebody's playing tokens, that means the game master should be able to have things they can do.
Right.
So
No,
speed is good.
Speed is good. Oh my gosh, the worst thing is to play in a game where combat is the most boring part of the game. You're like, what is wrong with this game? You know, that's not supposed to be the way.
Call out the GM, but it wasn't long ago. I was in a 5e game where I had took my turn, left, walked to the store, did some shopping, walked back, and I still had time.
Yeah.
No way. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so
we could go on that all day. Yes, let's go on to the next. What do we got?
well, I wanted to go back just a little. One last thing I want to say about hope and fear and all those things is I wanted to kind of point out how so we talked. I mentioned a critical success. So when someone rolls, so here's what happens as a result, and this is what it says on a critical success, you get what you want and a little extra. You gain a hope, and you get to clear a stress. So criticals are great for those for two reasons, because you gain a hope and you lose a stress. So that's good. On a success with hope, you pull it off well and get what you want, and you gain a hope. On a success with fear, you get what you want, but it comes with a cost or consequence, which I really like that from a storytelling aspect. Yeah, you got it, but you slipped in, wrecked your shoe. Now you only have one shoe, or some little game element that's a cool idea. On a failure with hope, things didn't go to plan. You probably didn't get what you want, and there are consequences, but you gain a hope. So, all right, so you get that's something there. And on a failure with fear, things go very poorly. You probably don't get what you want, and there is a major consequence or complication because of it. So I like these from the storytelling. Yeah, you've lost your head. That's
are those on a
but I was
page?
thinking it could be lose a finger, because I was thinking when we played Pirate Borg, some of the things you have, or lose an eye. I mean, like you lose that's a major consequence. Like, oh, that's pretty bad. Yeah, that's going to affect things going forward. Yeah, depending on how you want that to go. So yeah, so those are interesting ideas. So down here at the bottom, I do want to point out gold. Gold's got some interesting ideas. It has the place for gold. In fact, they only have is gold. They don't really fool with other. Yes.
I got a little bit lost. So before we do move on, let's can we look at this character, this elf sorcerer, and she has a hope and fear ability. It says when you roll with hope, mark a hope on your character sheet. You'll be able to spend any hope you have to aid future rolls for you and your allies. When you roll with fear, the GM can choose to take a fear or make a move. They can spend fear to instigate or accentuate challenges in the scene. These rolls, this is when I do something, I'm always rolling 2 12-sided dice. Is that it?
Correct.
And
yes.
I want, if blue is my hope and red is my fear, then I always want to roll higher I always want to roll the same, which would be ideal. But if not, then I want to get higher on the hope die. Is that correct?
Yeah, that part's that's so weird to me that you could roll 2 1s and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yay, it's a critical success. You're like,
yeah. I kind of like that. I mean, it's just like rolling, in the old days, rolling 2 6-sided dice, getting like snake eyes or something like that, or box cards.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had that down before we moved on. So.
You do, and we're going to talk a little bit about. So you said ability. Is that one of your class features, or is that on that?
So I looked
Loadout?
under the basics where it just said hope and
Okay.
fear. And I just wanted.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's one other thing I would like to ask about
Yeah.
the hope and fear, but the critical success. Is critical success connected to making an attack and making I guess, essentially an attribute or ability check? A dice
So
roll.
that-
Is it, in other words, can you have critical success and critical failure anytime you're rolling for any kind of 12-sided dice test?
Yeah, it's not
That's the
just for
part.
combat.
It's not just for
Right.
an attack. It's not just for
Right.
combat. It's for everything.
Right. Right.
Okay.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, hello, those of you who are watching, pay attention. Way of the future. Way of the future. If you want to make a system simple, it makes sense. It makes no sense that your attack can have a critical failure and a critical success only on attacks, but every other dice roll, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point.
And I know
there's a lot of
a
that.
few of you won't understand
parity.
this and get it, but seriously, yeah.
Yeah. Truth be told, I already do that in my 5e games and my Beckme games. One is a crit fail and 20 is a crit success. So
It's because you're a bright fellow.
Aw, making me blush.
Very good. So yeah, I'm just going to touch on the gold. Not spend a lot of times, but you see, they don't have like different kinds of coins. You just have gold. Gold's the only it's the only thing they're taking in this world. So I like kind of how they have it. I don't know. You keep track of coins, and then you have handfuls. So I think of it like every five coins, now you have a handful, and maybe once you get 10, you get a bag. I don't know. So
That's pretty cool.
that's a different way of keeping track of coins, but it's also simple. You only have to worry about, am I doing electrum? Or am I doing platinum? Or are we doing silver? And yeah,
Dare mention
that gets to be.
Come on.
What's that?
Don't you dare mention an Electrum. I hate that.
I love
Electrum. I went
on.
there. Yeah.
Electrum's my favorite.
The hate for that should not be as great as the hate for copper.
Yeah.
Copper coin.
Yeah.
Electrum's my favorite because so many people dislike it.
I gotta make in D&D. I actually divided the costs of everything by like 10 to try and make coppers more useful. Because otherwise, they're just like, why would you ever use it?
Yeah.
You throw it at people in a crowd, so that you can run away. That's
Catapult spell.
Yeah. See,
there you go.
You just toss it in the crowd, and then the guards are coming, and they're just not going to get to you because there's all these people picking up all these copper coins everywhere.
There you go. You heard it here, people. This is the use for copper coins. Write this down. And now we have a use
Yeah.
right there next to your.
Yeah. Take that copper coin, stick it in an empty room, shine a light on it. Hours and hours of fun for player characters as they figure out what to do with it.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that and ball bearings. This is right there next to your ball bearings.
There you go.
That's a use for copper coins. All right. So and the class features, we're not going to get into so much of that, but there's I do want to talk just briefly about this loadout idea. So, and I mentioned it earlier. I don't know, Wally, if you can put a
Where am I at? Loadout.
Your loadout is going to be right after. It's the color part. If you did it in color,
It's the cards at the bottom, mate.
Oh.
It's the colored cards at the bottom.
Yeah, it's after, but it's like 20. No, it's not 26, not 27.
Well. Let's see. Yeah. So I'm on the loadout page for my character.
Yes, that's what I want to see.
Mm-hmm. Loreborn, Elf, Primal Origin, Unleash Chaos, and Reign of Blades.
Ooh, looks
Yeah,
very-
so this is more of that. We talked I mentioned earlier about Loreborn and Elf. So they have this community and the ancestry. Ancestry is the new word for, we're not supposed to use race anymore. So, ancestry is kind of the way. I know Pathfinder went that way. No, the heritage, is it in Pathfinder?
Yeah, do you think?
Which one is it?
Is it lineage?
Ancestry, heritage?
Species.
I can't remember now, but they moved
Species,
away
race, ancestry, heritage.
That's
thingy.
it, ancestry.
It's one of
I think that's
those.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ancestry here. Okay, whatever. Tomato. It doesn't, it's still it's trait of your people, and then the community. I kind of like that. That kind of reminds me. It's a little bit like background. If you were lore born, it's kind of the people that you grew up with, or maybe the area you grew up with. And there's a few different communities that show up on this, and so that's good. They have a neat little thing with their um they had a subclass, and then they had these domains. I really love this idea of this duality of domains. So this one is, what was the name of what was your domains? You had,
Unleash Chaos, and
right,
that's a spell, and the other spell is Rain of Blades. They're both under
right.
domain.
Not given the type. Each class has a duality of two domains, and it's not
Oh,
telling what the name of
is
that
maybe
is,
that's that
but
little symbol that's underneath the one.
it is, yeah. I can Well, yes, I think it's the ones number one, and then there's a thing under it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, each one of them, and it kind of, so like for example, if you were playing 5e or something, and you had a warlock, maybe they might have a duality of maybe, I don't know, maybe sorcerer, but maybe kind of roguey if it were like a rogue and a warlock. Each one of these classes has this duality, which I really love. It still reminds me of a video game where you have trees. So
Mm.
you've got these two different trees to choose from, and then things can branch out from underneath those. As you get higher levels, you can have more that you can switch out and stuff. And so the idea is that your domain cards here that's part of what they call the loadout, which, that's definitely a video game kind of thing. And you can switch the loadout. I think you pretty much, depending on what it is, some have abilities they can do it on the fly, but that's kind of rare. I don't think that's not a normal thing. But like during your short rest, you can swap out different loadouts and stuff. So it kind of reminds me of the old days of like preparing spells.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what it also reminds me of is in fourth edition, one of the things that they tried to do is that everyone had something to do. Like there was, if you're a warrior, you had a bunch of stuff under them, like spells. You had something. So everyone had something to play with. Otherwise, you're just the warriors. Like I cast fists. Whatever. They don't have a lot. So everyone kind of had this parody kind of things they could adjust and stuff underneath. So that's what they're doing here, and I think it's interesting. I like this duality
I
kind of thing in these
I
classes.
can I just googled real quick the domains, and the two that are
Yeah,
on my cards there, the purple one is the Arcana domain, and
that's
the
it.
black one is the Midnight domain.
That's it.
And then the other
Yep.
ones are Blade, Bone, Codex, Grace, Sage,
Yeah.
Splendor, and Valor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
say
So
at the
I really
top.
like it. I think it's a cool. What were you gonna say, Cut?
I should say at the very top of your main character sheet, like with my Guardian, it says it's Valor and Blade.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, I
So
think it's awesome. Yeah, I
this,
like that idea.
Oh, it
yeah.
does right there.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Sorcerer, Arcana, and Midnight. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is it feels very Dungeons and Dragons 4y,
Does
where
it?
you had
Mm.
things you could do daily powers, things you could do per encounter, every battle, every encounter had
Mhm.
encounter powers. And then you had the at will powers, which you could use all the time. There was no limit to how many times you could use them, whereas daily powers and encounter powers, you could only use a daily power once a day, and you could only use an encounter power once per battle. Which caused problems when players decided to combine 3 encounters all at one and said, well, but we dragged 3 battles into one. Can we not use our encounter powers 3 times since we are engaged in 3 battles? And you'd say, tough, you shouldn't have done it. Shouldn't have done it. I don't think this is a thing that necessarily will break a game, having that sort of thing where you have domains that you select. But
Right.
there is certainly a portion of the community who play tabletop role-playing games who will look at this and think that this is too much like the power system. It didn't work for Dungeons and Dragons 4e for everybody, frankly, and I think it's a little bit risky But if if that's what they want, that's what they want. It does make it simple and easy for you to sort of operate, because you can run it on a card system where you just have cards for everything, rather than like navigate your complicated character sheet or multiple pages of character sheet trying to remember what the heck it is you can actually do, since the game has been codified so much.
Yep.
And
Well, I will say it doesn't quite work like that. Like, it doesn't, like, each one of these don't limit you to like, this is only once per encounter.
Yeah,
once, like, they actually work
Right.
more like 5e abilities. It's just you have the ability to swap what you have equipped as far as your abilities are concerned.
Yeah.
And you can like hot swap them by taking stress depending on how much is on the card and stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's more like just having more like customizability in your 5e ability sets.
Right.
I'm still a little torn on it. I mean, it may
Yeah.
be a bit more finagly than I would normally like to play in a game, but
Right.
it's not, I can't see it being broken yet, but I'd have to give it a test. So
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. And yeah, but I am with Fred in that risky part. Like, there's a lot of, that's the word I would use. And a lot of the choices that they made, is that there's some risky moves. So the way I look at this game, and I'm like, if you look at the success of Shadow Dark, you look at Morkborg and these rules light, they were moving in that rules light direction and having great success. And now we're going in some kind of rules heavy moves, some maybe not so much rule heavy, but different enough where it's going to have a learning curve that you didn't necessarily have with 5e and you don't have with these rules light. So that's a risky move. It may pay off, it might not. I don't know. It remains to be seen. I question, like, is Critical Role powerful enough and have the influence enough for people to want to go through the work of learning this, this new game that's so different than, and at the heart of it, it's still collaborative storytelling for sure. But there's so many different things that's a little different here, a little bit different here, a little different here, a little different here. And then by the time you're done, it's a lot different. So for a new player picking it up, like, I'm thinking about teaching a group of people to play this without the app. Yeah, the app I think would be critical. But you'd have to get them in there and going. And I think once you get going, it's not going to be so bad. But it's just like, oh, here's a lot of stuff you got to learn, and duality dice and all this. Yeah.
I do see one issue though. Like, so Vancian memorization for Magic. Okay, that's generally been dropped a long time ago by most systems. You still see it in Pathfinder. A lot of players, newer players especially, like, I never minded it, but I have an engineering background and stuff. A lot of players don't want to deal with that. This is basically Vancian memorization of your abilities. You're choosing which abilities you have access to, hoping those are the ones you're going to need, and knowing it may cost you to have to swap them out after.
Yeah. That again, there's some risks. It might pay off, it might not. I don't know, but yeah, good points.
Well,
I do want to
I would like to make the point that Vancian magic and Vancian abilities, where you have to take that risk about whether you will use it or not, is a dinosaur. Okay, it's not only a niche particular world, dying earth sort of thing, but it's a dinosaur. It's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people don't want to play D&D, just because of Vancian magic, because they would like to play a wizard or something like that, and then they realize what they had to contend with. It's the same sort of thing. We used to have the same thing in Dungeons and Dragons 4E, where you'd have to choose what your daily power was, because you couldn't have access to all of them, or you couldn't have access to all your encounter powers. You had to select and pick and hope that was the one that you would actually get to use, and and in the right circumstance. Whereas at will powers, again, you could use them all the time. That wasn't so bad.
Right.
You still had to pick which ones you were going to take. You couldn't have them all, but it's a dinosaur. It's a dinosaur where you decide, we're going to create a codified system, and to keep down complexity, rather than giving you everything, because we don't want the players to explode and their heads to pop off, we need to restrict out of all these options, since we want them to have lots of options because people nowadays want more options until it's coming out their backside, we need to restrict it so that their heads don't explode and they can actually play the game.
Right.
It's a bad way to go as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it's a good idea. But anyway.
I don't. What's so for me? I think I dozed off for a few minutes. I'm sorry. What is? I'm just kidding. What is Vancian magic? What does that mean? Is that is that where you have?
Where you prepare your spells for the day, kind of thing. That's the same idea, right?
Okay, so like a
Like
cleric.
back in the day, like if I only had like so many slots I could put spells in, but I knew like 30 of them.
Yes.
I needed 2 fireballs today, so I'm gonna put 2 fireballs there, and then you realize, screw, god damn it, I'm only fighting fire elementals. Now I'm screwed because like I memorized fireballs today.
Right.
Okay.
At least with this, you can swap them out, but that means it's costing you because you didn't have the forethought to know somehow what abilities you were going to need. I'm a little torn on that. I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah.
That's why in 5e I
I
love
know.
sorcerers, because you just know your spells. That's it. You don't have to choose. That's all I know. Is that? I mean, that's what I'm understanding, though, right? I mean, it's not, or should it be, or is it open up to the entire spell list? Are we just talking about like the ones that you know, like in your spell book or in your list? You should be able to.
No, because you have a limited number of domain cards you can have in your loadout.
Okay.
So it's possible for you to have more abilities than what you can have active, and you have to choose which ones you're going to actually have active.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, you just have to know what fight you're going to need for. Yeah, that's
a
tough one.
You know what's funny about that is not to sidetrack and tangent too much, but it's like when I'll put out a puzzle or a trap that includes poison, and I'll get the comments of just be flooded. Oh, just cast detect poison. I just like, who has cast or detect poison prepared?
Right.
And I just like, yeah, that's a great solution, but I guarantee you the cleric is not going to have detect poison prepared. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, I prepared this, we'll just cast that. They're going to have cure light wounds, they're going to have spiritual weapon, sorry.
Wally, I have a solution for that. You don't need a spell. What you do need is a small bird or a small rodent that you feed or get them to drink it or feed the food to.
Yes.
And if they die, it's poisonous.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what gnomes are for.
Yeah, you don't need spells for detecting poison. Yeah. If you need to detect acid, acid's easy.
Yeah.
You can stick animals and sticks in there, and they usually disappear, and then you know it's acid. So it's.
All right, we're learning stuff. We're teaching stuff tonight. This is good stuff. I hope everyone's taking notes.
Yeah,
it does look like they eat some things. Like my whirlwind ability says it's 0 stress, so it looks like I could hot swap that for free. But then I've got one here that has like an actual stress score to it. So, and as you said, stress is bad. Like I don't have that many stress boxes. So the fact that like 1/5 of my stress is going to be taken up because I want to swap out an ability, that could be impactful.
Well, and the other thing too is once you max out your stress, as I mentioned, you're at disadvantage. But then if you're supposed to take another stress and you don't have another box, it starts taking your hit points. So that can really start to, things get bad. Stress is bad all around. So that I'm not super sure about either, because I like the idea of stress. I like there to be consequences. I like that there's, you saw some bad stuff or you've been through some bad stuff. That's what I've always liked, the insanity kind of element. But it's starting to knock them down your hit points, and you're gonna have to really deal with it. You're gonna have to stop and take more reason to take a rest at times. So I don't know about how that's going to affect the game. So yeah, these are just interesting points. But I do want to talk about death, because I'm sure Fred will die.
Yeah.
Really quickly. We do need to talk about dying.
More than once,
so,
if I can.
So, maybe you should have. Well, it's good that you're preparing another character, because
No. Just don't be stupid, Mark. Just a number 2 beside it, or a number 3.
That's right.
Making another character.
You're not going to do it. Okay,
characters
that's right.
don't die on our live streams. What are you talking about?
No, I haven't. I don't remember any characters.
Only players.
Yeah. No, we've had a few character deaths on our live stream.
I need to wash and we'll get back.
Okay.
So
Death.
dying. You got when you die, when you're reduced to 0, you've got 3 options. You can do Blaze of Glory. You embrace death and you go out in a blaze of glory. You
Nice.
take 1 action at the GM's discretion, which becomes an automatic critical success, then cross through the veil of death. So 1 last swan song. Boom. Whatever you do, it's automatic critical. Or
Very
you can
nice.
avoid death. Avoid death. You avoid death and face the consequences. You roll the hope dice. If its value is equal to or under your level, you gain a scar. You also drop unconscious temporarily. Work with the GM to describe how the situation gets much worse because of it. You may not move or act while unconscious. You return to consciousness when an ally clears 1 or more of your marked hit points or when your party finishes the next long rest. That's one way you can roll it. The last one, this is a good one. Risk it all. Roll your duality dice. If hope is higher, you stay on your feet and clear an amount of hit points and or stress equal to the value of the hope die. Divide the hope die value between these however you prefer. If your fear die is higher, you cross through the veil of death. If the duality dice are tied, you stay on your feet and clear all hit points and stress. So there's that critical success again. So it even applies for dying. I think I like Blaze of Glory. I think that's the way to go. But
I
was
feel
trying to
like
what
three
what
three
page are
options
you
is
on, Mark?
actually
What page are
three
you on?
options is
so
only
I'm
one
actually in the. It doesn't talk about it in all this play material stuff.
Okay.
So
I couldn't
it's
find it in
interesting.
there, but it's actually on the app.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can somebody just simplify this for me? Okay, because I'm a simple fellow. So there's 3 options for character death, which for me
Yes.
in a live stream is only one option. There is only one
Oh.
option. Either
Oh,
out of 3
yeah.
options. And that is
Oh,
to
yeah.
die in a blaze of glory.
Absolutely.
But the first one, right, is you're definitely going to die, but you're going out in a blaze of glory. Okay, so that's
Yes.
death 1. Then there's
Yes.
one where it sounds like you're dying, but you're not dead.
Right.
And that's essentially all that's going on. Then you might recover, you might not. There's
You
a
get a
chance
scar.
of, you
cool
get a
scar.
scar. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that'd be a cool
so
scar.
essentially it's not even you're dying, it's more you're going to survive. You just got
Yeah.
a scar. So
Yeah.
you get to live. So one, you're dead for sure. One,
Yeah.
you live and you got a scar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the last one is you're dying, but you might live or you might die. Is that basically
Yeah.
what we're saying here? Okay.
50-50 chance. And then if you hit success, it's like jackpot. You not only that, you get all your hit points back and you clear all your stress. So yeah, I'm not really excited about the avoid death part, but
So here's where my thoughts are on this. This is what I've proposed before to people, that by eliminating, one of the biggest problems as a game master or a dungeon master is your decision around how characters go out with death. And often I feel like as a game master and dungeon master, sometimes we get attached too much to that sort of thing. And so what I do in my own games is I say, you can choose when you reach 0 hit points in D&D, you did. Or if you want to have death saving throws, that's fine. Okay, cool. We'll go through that. Or if you just want your character to live because you just want to keep playing the character, that's cool too. They're not going to get up in the battle, but you don't have to make another character. You play that character. They wake up. Maybe they have a missing limb. Maybe they're a little worse for wear. I think this is a great way to see the whole process of character death myself, because it removes it from the game master as making those decisions, not because the game master shouldn't make those decisions, but because I've had way too many games where adults are crying at my table because their character died. And you can say, well, screw them, suck it up, be an adult. You should be able to cope with that. But role-playing games are not like playing Monopoly. Do you know what I mean? When you play Monopoly or Snakes and Ladders or chess, when you lose, there's only like a few hours of animosity and bad feelings between you. But because you've only been playing for 4 hours with Monopoly, or 5 hours if you're really unlucky. And with chess, you might have been playing for a couple of hours, and checkers, it's going to be a lot shorter than that. So you're not investing quite so much, but you're investing hours and hours, days, months, sometimes years into tabletop role-playing games. So there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more to lose. So I actually think it's a very smart way. It will play really well in a live stream online game, giving players the option to do that. And it eliminates you having to deal with people getting out Kleenexes and having to dry their eyes because they lost the character. They couldn't distinguish between themselves and the character anymore. So I think sweet myself.
Well, you won me over because I was on and Gonzo and I always talked about the idea that you have to have death to make the game exciting, but you bring up a good point. Not everyone is comfortable with that. And so now it gives you an option. And I know mental health and all those things and that's knowing your players too. If you like our table, like Gonzo would tear up their character sheet. I didn't even go that far, but that was a little hardcore. But I was like, dude, I don't know about that one. But you're right. I think I like that idea that the player then decides what they're comfortable with. And so then you would have a person that decides that I want to go out in a blaze of glory because that's the way it is, But then that person sitting next to him is like, yeah, I really like my character. I've been playing him a while and I couldn't handle that. And that's fine. So it gives you an out. I get that is a good point.
Nice.
I like that it can customize to the player's play style. Because I think of like my Thursday game that we regularly play. Me and one of the other players, we're old school. We're like, punish me, daddy. Like if I die because I exploded randomly or something, I was like, that's awesome. Let's go.
Right.
But then we have another player who, like, she didn't play her first game of D&D with us until she was 65. She's like 70 now. And she's not as comfortable with that type of thing. She'd like to see her character like continue, and she gets into it and stuff like that. So very much in that case, like, we tend to go easier on her as a result. And in this would be a perfect thing for her because she could decide, I'm just going to concede, or like just to be taken, my presence and agency is taken out of the scene instead of me going sploot, and that's it.
Yeah. No, that's good points all around. I like that. Yeah, so that's how it is, Fred. So you get you choose how you want to go out. And
so I mean, one of the things, because I was used to playing tabletop war games where when a piece went down, it was like, well, there's another one. I don't care.
Right. Yeah,
So when I first played tabletop role playing games and D&D, it's like, when my character dies, I'm just going to make another character. It's dead. I don't care. Yeah. Don't forget about magic and stuff like that. But one of the things you learn as you're playing the game for a while, and I don't know how you guys have noticed it, but people's opinion and the importance they put on character death is different. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it actually works quite fine. It's as long as a game master and dungeon master can get over their own bias and like, for me, when I'm playing a game, I want character death. To me, you are dead. There's no way you can ever come back. But I've got people in my group who, when a character goes to 0 hit points, they want to be dead. Yeah. And for them, they're happy with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I've got a few who are, when their character dies, they want to be dead, but they think that everybody else should be. And like you're holding on too tight. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You're becoming way too controlling over the whole situation. And I hate to say it, if you play tabletop role-playing games enough, character death is not the worst thing that can happen to your character.
Yeah, true. That's true.
And if you don't understand that, I enjoy the day that you figure that out, because that will be an entertaining day.
That is no joke. I was in a party of 3, and my 2 friends were blind and deaf in the middle of Barovia with no way, and it was permanent. And I was stuck with these 2 guys. Wow. I'm just like, oh my goodness. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry.
Yep.
All right, so I thought I just want to take a peek at everyone. So if you could, everyone but Wally, you could share what your character is just real quick. We're not going to go through the whole character sheet, but just what your character is, as far as we'll look at their heritage and their two areas of expertise, basically. If we could put those up and then
Go Garrick
a little
first.
fun. Okay, that's fine.
You want to do me?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I just scrolled to the next one and it was you.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and that's fine. So we can talk about those a little bit, and then any final thoughts. And so, so Garrick Reed, Highborn Human Warrior.
can I do this, Mark?
Yep, I want you
Okay.
to.
Okay. So I've put Garrick. I built Garrick on Nexus. Okay.
Oh, cool.
So it gave me a
Okay.
bit more of an understanding of what the heck I had to do. And it's
Yeah.
very, very simple. You pick a character name,
Mhm.
you pick your pronoun, which I frankly think is unnecessary, but they're obviously PC. So you pick your character level, you pick a portrait, and then you move on. And then you get to your class. You pick your class. There's obviously one class you pick, but you do that. But you also pick a subclass to go with your class. You're going to get traits. You get 4 traits. These are really your I guess they're like ability scores or ability modifiers or attribute modifiers, and that's your agility, strength, finesse, instinct, presence, knowledge. And I've got +2 because you get a +2, 2 +1s, and a -1. I put my +2 into agility, +1 into strength, +1 into finesse, and a -1 into presence. And of course, is that right? Finesse? I think that's right. Presence, -1 presence. So that's how I built it out. So that's how it sort of looks, and it's really eliminating the scores. So that's nice and easy. It's not that hard to figure out. You have starting gear. You get 2 pieces of starting gear. I've got the long sword, and I've also picked a longbow because I like to shoot things at a distance when I can't smack them with my sword. It's very simple. You pick some starting armor. So there's 5 different options essentially, although I think not necessarily all of them should be available, but anyway, I picked one. I've got my chainmail. I've got starting inventory, and so you actually get in Nexus, it gives you like 2 options. You got to have 2 of them. You got to have 2 pieces of starting inventory, and you get 2 options each time you pick. In this case, I picked the minor stamina potion, and I also picked a sharpening stone because I feel like I need to be able to sharpen my arrows and my blade before I gut somebody in the most horrible way I can possibly think of. So that's pretty simple. It's not hard to do. You got your domain deck. Your domain deck, you pick 2 domains, and for the warrior and what I was dealing with, there's bone and there's blade, and so you pick the ones you want. I see it coming, and I have not good enough. So basically, we've gotten not good enough. I get to roll 1s and 2s in terms of damage, and I see it coming is basically just more around attacks and changing how that works, rolling a d4. So that's cool. All good with that. Once you've done your class stuff, you do your heritage stuff, and I did my heritage stuff, which means this is you're dealing with your ancestry. There's a bunch they're essentially just races and species. So I've got human, but you can pick all sorts of things. You can be a fairy. If you like being fairy, you can be a fairy. It's there. You choose your community, which is kind of like your background, I guess. Mine is highborn. So it means that I'm a smoozer. I'm a sort of person who really probably hasn't done a decent day's work, and lives off the hard work of the little person, as you do,
as it should be.
And then experiences. Really, with experiences, there's an interesting section because this is much more what do you call it, narrative. You actually get to write stuff in, so you can choose your description. You can do what your clothes look like, what your eyes look like, what your body shape is like, the color you have, your attitude, what sort of attitude you have to your character. It also gives you questions to ask yourself about your background, which is who taught you to fight and why did you stay behind when you left home. Somebody defeated you in battle years ago, blah 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 blah. So left you for dead. Who is it? And why do you feel like you've been betrayed? Blah blah blah. that sort of stuff. It's actually got 3 questions, and I'm assuming that all of the options do the same, something very similar. What
Yeah, I would
legendary
think so.
place have you always wanted to visit, and why is it so special? And these here questions, I get the distinct impression that these are designed to allow the game master to poach those ideas and figure out if they're able to incorporate it into the adventure if they want to, and make it easier for them to do so by asking certain types of questions that might be suitable. And experiences, basically, I believe you get 3 points, and I've got 2 points in affable and 1 point in hit them hard, and that's sort of what I've got for my character. And the word itself tells you most of what you need to know, so it's not too complicated. It also has another section which is create a connection. This is something that often you'll find people talk about, like, you need to be able to know, there's got to be a reason why you're hanging out with these no-hopers in the first place. Otherwise, why would you just not kill them all, take their stuff, and go off and do your own thing, right?
Yeah, why are you gathered together in a tavern? Like,
I mean, it can't always be like, oh, we just happen to hang together even though we hate each other's guts and plotting behind each other's backs. So you have a bunch of questions like, what fear am I helping you to overcome? What mundane thing off the battlefield do you usually help me with? And how do you know each other long before the party came together? So in other words, you should have known each other before you even did this. Because if you go exploring and you want to be a hero with a group of other heroes, do you go with the people that are complete strangers that you never knew anything about, that you probably hate? So I like this approach. I think that's a smart, and that's the really, I would say, the gist of that character.
Well done, Fred.
Very good. So you found that
Impressive.
you found that whole process easy
Piece of cake
with the app.
And if anything, I would say that building a character with Nexus is probably, if it was out of 10, 1 out of 10, I would say that would be a 10 for me to build a character using Nexus. I didn't need to know anything, and trust me, I didn't know anything. I just went through and selected the thing and tried to match it up with the pre-made character, and it was easy to follow. It wasn't complicated. I didn't have to go through drop boxes and then find another little drop box underneath that. None of that sort of shit.
Like D&D Beyond.
D&D Beyond.
I was going to ask you.
D&D Beyond, I would say, is a 4 or 5. In terms of character building. It's much more difficult, frankly.
Yeah, good. Okay, very good, Fred. All right, I like it. Good. All right, that's your character. So we put Ket up something. We kind of just real fast. What you don't have to go that involved. Yeah.
No, he pretty much answered anything I would have said anyways. I also plugged mine in with the Demiplane Nexus thing, and I agree. It was I didn't know anything, and I was just like click, done. Good. It was really easy. Level 1 character in this, like, I have definitely seen bad games, riffs. I've seen good and like, honestly, like, this is, I have my hangups about certain mechanics. I'll see how I process them when we play. But making a character is very straightforward. Even if I didn't have that program, I think even making a character would be fairly straightforward, fairly easy. I can see the DNA of the other games that they pulled in for this one. I can see influences, and I'm like, that's from that game, that's from that game. But at the same time, like, for those that are like, oh, it's copying another game, I mean, like, all art kind of copies all other art. It's iterative and it's evolving. That's kind of how that works. So I have no problems with that. And it looks pretty smooth for making the characters. We'll see how the actual play goes.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, that's the question. So we have our characters created. We have them here. The next question. So next time we meet, we're gonna jump right into playing. We'll have everybody ready to go, and we'll see who dies and who lives. So any last comments before we leave here about this game in general? I think we pretty much talked quite a bit about it. But any last parting shots, or what do you think?
I'll probably flub my way through it by then. That's 2 weeks from now. I'll probably forget everything that I learned, and so you're gonna have to treat me with newbie gloves. You're gonna have to put me at the front of the class. Probably even slap that yardstick on there, make sure I'm awake.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. I can do that.
Mhm.
I can do that. Yeah. So that's fine. It really, again, at the end of the day, it is just a collaborative storytelling. I feel like there's more opportunities of collaboration built in that you're going to see, and we'll talk about that more as we play. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about how this game plays out. Like eventually, like as far as long-term success. I know it's been talked about before in other channels, but we're definitely in an interesting age right now where there's a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of systems that are vying for
Yes, they are. Yeah.
what D&D has left on the table, basically,
Mhm.
and open the door for this. People call it a renaissance, but there's some really good systems that are in play right now that be interesting to see who comes out on top. Are we going to unseat D&D or Pathfinder, or how's this all going to play out as far as popularity goes? So I'm anxious to see where this falls. But boy, there's a lot of money being put. What MCDMs was 4 million
Mhm.
on the backer kit. That's crazy numbers. Shadow Dark, which I helped back that as well. I love that system, over 1 million. They're hitting some numbers that really
Yeah.
show that people want something different.
Yeah.
And this Daggerheart is one that at the end of the day, I feel like they put a lot of thought and work into it. And I really hope it has some success, at least some, but we'll see.
Yeah, I do have I do if you have time for just a quick discussion, I do think those numbers are a little bit misleading, just because let's take Kobold Press for example. In order to have a system, you need people to buy it. Kobold
Yep.
Press does really good Kickstarters. They always, they've done a lot of them and they've raised a lot of money, but they only need like 5,000 to 6,000 really dedicated fans. They don't need millions or thousands of people playing. They just need enough to pay everybody for that next book, make their money, and then go on to make their next book.
Right.
House of the Variant or Valiant or whatever it is. So you don't really need a huge fan base. You just need a dedicated fan base, one that's passionate about your game. And if you run successful Kickstarters, your system of 10,000 people or less can live as long as you keep doing good, good with it.
Great point. Great point. Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, it's I just love the variety. I'm just like, Morkborg, the heck that come from, I'm like, that's so radically different,
Where did it? No, it's not. It's not. If you've played it, it's
well, I
Dungeons.
saw you guys play. I played Piratborg. Well,
No,
it isn't, but
it's Dungeons and Dragons. The only thing
setting
is
is
they
like,
just sucked out all of the out of all the joy out of life and
yeah.
and their setting, and made it clear that you're going to die at some point, and then
Yeah.
they decided, well, let's forget about a DC number that needs to change that much. It's just a 12. You need to just get a 12. Just get a 12, not a 10 or a 5. 12 or
Nice.
more. It's usually just 12 or more. So yeah, it's just D&D, really, if you ask me.
Oh yeah.
But what I think that's interesting about this particular game is that the player base that are watching it and watching Critical Role, they could be playing scissors, paper, stones, and people would go and watch those guys. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. No, it's entertaining.
I mean,
for sure.
they could be tic-tac-toe, and they'd probably hang out with them and watch them playing that game. So I don't really think it's going to matter. There's got to be at least 1 million people who are die hard or pretty heavy into Critical Role who will go off and play this game no matter what it's like. It's close enough to D&D if you ask me. It might look like a lot like D&D 4e, but it's got some other stuff going on that's a little bit different. I honestly, looking at the thing, do not think it's a game that I would be drawn to or want to play. but I've been proven wrong a few times by actually going and playing a system. It's all very well reading something and building a character for a system until you've actually played it. So I can't be sure of that, but that's where my head is at. I think that it will succeed as long as they wind up using the system on their channel, and as long as the game that they're playing has that narrative style and bent that people really go to their channel for and follow Critical Role for. That's all they need. They don't, it could be scissor, paper, stones for all they care.
I totally agree. And the thing with Critical Role is they're professionals. So they're going to take this game and they're going to, I hesitate to say play it better than everyone else, but they're going to play this game probably better than most other people are going to, just because they're professionals. They do this a lot. It's kind of like a yo-yo. If you've never played with a yo-yo before and you walk by and you see somebody doing all these yo-yo tricks, you're like, man, that's really cool. I want one. And you're going to go home and get that yo-yo. You're going to wind it up a couple times. It's going to smash the light above you. And you're probably not going to be as good with the yo-yo, but you're still going to have fun. What was I talking about? I don't know what I'm doing. That's
funny.
But
but
they're going to showcase it. If this is what they do and they play this on a live stream, if they do a campaign and they showcase this, they're going to show you all the bells and whistles, and people are going to go to it.
So we don't have to feel bad for them and worry about them living on the streets. So they'll all be kicked out because they're
as long as they make another Vox Machina season, I'm good to go, man. I love that little cartoon.
I know.
So good.
The only thing I didn't like about that was they had to change the beholder to that weird looking monster, but I was like, other than that, it's been super great. But that thing was like, what the heck was that? Yeah.
All right.
Good stuff. What do you think, Cut Up? Any last thoughts?
Not too many. I mean, I do have to go in a minute anyways, but I have some reservations about some aspects of the system. I'm not going to lie. There's parts of it that I'm like, I don't know if that's a good move. But there are parts of it I do like. It's a mixed bag. I mean, no system's going to be perfect. I don't hate it. I mean, there are systems I do hate. So that's something to be said. But there are aspects of it that feel they're out of place or they're grandfathered because people expect them or something like that, that I feel like I got to try, but I'm not sure I'm going to be super fond of.
Yeah. Very good. Nice. Yeah, I think I agree with that. I'm on wait and see mode right now. I mean, like I love some of the stuff I'm looking at, and I just keep thinking that's an interesting way of doing that. Yeah, I never thought about doing it that way, but we'll see how that works out. And I'm anxious to see, as the beta test goes on, how much is going to be tweaked and pulled out, and will they just like drop things altogether and all that. So it may be a completely different product when we're at the end of this. So we'll see. If it's 2 years, I mean, they could do quite a lot, as Fred said. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I think
out of here, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
I said take us. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We've got one more person who needs to respond. Isn't AJ supposed to give his feedback? For those of you who because I know
like,
what AJ
Scoop,
will be.
let's play some Daggerheart, okay?
I love the picture. I love the picture there.
Daggerheart.
I know what AJ was thinking, because he was mentioning. I said, so we're showing up to a live stream and we're not making the character. We're going to talk about making the character and how the characters work.
You weren't excited about that.
So then he's like, are we just going to play the game then? No. So I know what AJ is like. I'll show up to play the game. If we're not making a character on a live stream, I'll show up to play the game. I'm not showing up.
He'll be our wild
the gang will be back.
Yeah. It's got better things to do with this time.
I look forward to 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
All right, we'll see you on the whatever it is in 2 weeks, Thursday night.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, take us out, Mark. Or is that it?
All right, thanks, everybody. We're taking us out.
All right.
Bye, everybody.